Congress has given up its power to the president. The courts are giving up its power to the president. And no one person should have all that power. That's why we had a system of checks and balances that the founders of this country made. So we are in unprecedented times. That means we need unprecedented maneuvers. We really need to see the Democratic governors come together and do something on the offense. And dare I say, offensive. Like, it has to be an offensive maneuver. And for a party that is so risk averse, I know it's very difficult for them to pivot on a dime, but our democracy is at stake.
I'm joined now by Salaam Bhatti, who is a poverty lawyer. We'll explain what that means in a minute, running for U.S. Congress in the 1st District of Virginia. And if you followed my work for a while and that district sounds familiar, it's because yours truly ran for Congress in that district 6 years ago, won the Democratic nomination and lost in the general election. And yes, if you were waiting on bated breath, this is a full endorsement of Salaam for the Democratic nomination. We're going to talk more about the district, why it's primed to flip. But before we get there, Salaam, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Qasim.
You know, your story is one that I know very well because we've known each other for a long time, but I think it reflects kind of what more people want to see in Congress. I think folks are sick and tired of the elitism. They're tired of the multimillionaires getting elected, the nepotism, Democrats talking about, we don't believe in kings, no kings, but then they keep tapping establishment Democrats and not holding a real primary. And I say this as somebody who's been the Democratic nominee and understand how the party works and the need to improve the party. So let's start with kind of the high level overview, because I think one of the first criticisms you're going to get is the party has a 26% approval rating right now. What's your approach to that? How are you going to solve this? And how are you going to convince people to trust the Democratic Party right now?
I've been in the trenches with people in poverty, people who are working class folks, and I've listened to what they're wanting, what they're needing from a government. And as a young parent, I got 2 boys, 6 and 3. We understand the costs of living are out of control. So when you have a party that's polling in the 20 percentile, we don't need to, the party of yesterday is gone. We need to move forward with progress, with things that really help working class families. We need to do something about the groceries that are out of control, energy bills, which in Virginia have gone up at least 14%. Crazy. We've got to do something about healthcare that's out of control. And these are all being tied to, these increases are all tied to Republican policies that they put through in months without even thinking about us.
And that's kind of the frustration in that we're not seeing the Democratic Party take some of the more aggressive actions that we had hoped they would take. I think now we're finally starting to see Gavin Newsom do some stuff, but I'll be honest, the cutesy, trolling on social media would have been great 10 years ago, literally 10 years ago, back in 2015 when the Trump phenomenon, kind of took off after he announced for president. Now, take action. And I get it that California has to wait until November because of a ballot initiative and all that good stuff. But how great would it be to see Democratic governors across the country do a joint press conference and say, we're not taking this sitting down. We are gerrymandering the crap out of every single seat in our state, and we will make sure that we have a Democratic majority. Because this is what you guys wanted. We voted unanimously, by the way, under Joe Biden, Democrats voted unanimously to end gerrymandering, to get big money out of politics. Republicans voted unanimously against that and blocked it from passing. And so at this point, what needs to happen for the Democratic establishment to be like, oh, maybe we need to start bringing a gun to a gunfight as opposed to these, pathetic, strongly worded letters that Chuck Schumer keeps putting out there?
These gerrymandering things that we're seeing in play right now are still defensive. The Republicans made the first move and Democrats are now on the defense. We really need to see the Democratic governors come together and do something on the offense. And dare I say, offensive. Like, it has to be an offensive maneuver. Yeah. And for a party that is so risk averse, I know it's very difficult for them to pivot on a dime, but our democracy is at stake. Fascism is coming hot and heavy. Congress has given up its power to the president. The courts are giving up its power to the president. And, no one person should have all that power. That's why we had a system of checks and balances that the founders of this country made. So we are in unprecedented times. That means we need unprecedented maneuvers.
I love the way you frame that. And I think that's really why the party has a 26% approval right now, because we keep getting these promises that this is the most important election of our lifetime and this is the one that's going to be the most consequential. And they're all the most important elections of our lifetime. They're all the most consequential, right? So like, let's stop pretending that this is any different. No, but this time really, no, it doesn't work. They're all consequential. My question is, what are you doing outside of, texting me for $5 and how this $5 is going to help? You know what I've been doing actually? I've probably gotten in the last month easily 100 different texts from Democrats running for office. And this is what disappoints me. Every single text I've responded to say, yeah, I'll donate. Whatever you're asking for, I'll donate. Just tell me, what is your position on stopping the genocide in Palestine? And before I let you answer, the data, by the way, shows that 77% of Democrats back in 2024 wanted Biden and Harris to stop arming Netanyahu. That number now is 92% of Democrats oppose what Israel is doing. 92%. That rivals the number of Democrats who support protecting abortion access. That rivals the number of Democrats who support ending Citizens United. That rivals the number of Democrats who support gun safety legislation. Could you imagine any Democrat running for office as a Democrat and saying, you know what, we don't need to protect abortion access. Let's go with these abortion bans. Could you imagine them saying, you know what, the NRA, they're actually not bad guys. Let's go ahead and take NRA funding. You could never imagine that. But on this issue, 92% of Democrats are saying, what the hell is wrong with you? Stop funding this genocide. And politicians are like, eh. And so to close a loop on my story about the texts I'm getting, I've received probably about 100, maybe a little bit less, a little bit more. And Salaam, I've responded to every single one saying, if you just commit to stop funding Netanyahu, I will donate right away. I have had one person respond and say, you have my firm commitment that I will vote to block funding to arm Netanyahu. And I donated to that person, by the way. They got a donation from me, and I promise to donate to them again in the future. But what does it say when only one candidate running for office is willing to do that? And so I'll pose the question to you, Salaam. If you're in Congress and a vote comes up to send more arms to Netanyahu, knowing full well he's committing genocide, what is your vote and why?
I will block that vote 1,000% every single time. And here's why. We grew up in public school reciting the Pledge of Allegiance every single day. And we ended that pledge with liberty and justice for all. The all wasn't a short form of allies, where it's only for allies, or there's some fine print where they can get away with stuff. And so we have to realize that justice for all means justice for all from the foundation, even when our allies are committing injustices. Just because Israel is our ally does not mean they can get away with committing the Holocaust of our time. They are shooting people in a caged land while they are trying to get food. This is an affront to human decency, and as parents, we need to realize that those are our children too. We did not decide that the child that we gave birth to, that our spouses gave birth to, we didn't have a choice. Those are our children as well. And there's a phrase that really helps build empathy when we're looking at things like this. There, but for the grace of God, go I. That could be us.
Yep.
And if you need to make it personal for you to have empathy, to have justice for them, to have compassion for them, then think about that. Anytime a video comes up on your social media feed of a child starving or somebody getting shot, just think that it was only chance or good fortune or whatever that you are where you can watch that on a video instead of being in that land right now. So whatever's going on there is going to come here, and we are funding that, and we need to stop funding that.
The Canadian thought leader, Tony Benn, who said that the way a government treats refugees is instructive, because if they were allowed to, they would treat citizens that way as well. Mm-hmm. And the way that this government is treating Palestinian refugees, recently the State Department just announced that they are blocking children from Gaza from coming to the United States for dire medical treatment. Shocking. that children who are victims of war, of genocide, are now somehow a security threat. No evidence provided as to how they're a security threat, but this is the emphasis that I try to make to folks, that for me, this is not a red versus blue issue. This is not a politically right versus politically left issue. This is a humanity versus barbarity issue. And whether you're a Republican or Democrat, you should, as you said, Salaam, recognize that these are our children as well. James Baldwin talks about that, right? That the children are ours all over the world. And I'm beginning to think that whoso is unable to recognize that is incapable of morality. These were the strong words that James Baldwin used. And Salaam, let's talk a little bit about your race now on this issue, and then we'll move on to the next one. You're running in the first district. There's a growing number of candidates. To my knowledge, and keep me honest on this, you're the only one who has publicly condemned this genocide, called for proper application of international human rights law, and called for an end to the arms trade to Israel.
Absolutely. And I've lost followers across social media for it, and I don't care. I'm on the right side of history, and we need to end this genocide. We need to end this Holocaust, and I will continue to speak out against it. I've also pledged not to take any AIPAC funding. AIPAC has funded our opponent, Representative Rob Whitman, and I believe they're going to fund them even more so over the coming year, as this is one of the targeted districts that Democrats are focused on. They also funded him leading up to the vote for the big, ugly bill.
Yeah.
And so that's also concerning, too, that we have foreign interests donating to Congress members who voted on the worst bill in American history.
Yeah, or at least in modern American history. This is a bill, for those of you who have maybe missed the memo, kicking 17 million people off of Medicaid. People will die. One of the largest wealth transfers from working class people to the super wealthy in American history. We're talking trillions of dollars. And it does something very sinister. And by the way, guts climate justice, guts racial justice, guts the education program, massively increases ICE to now being the 11th largest military in the world, spends $50 billion on building private prisons and concentration camps while saying that we don't have enough money to solve the homelessness crisis. It's just nonsensical. And one of the cruel things that this bill does is that it enacts some of these policies right after midterms, so that people won't feel the pinch as much until it's too late for them to realize that, oh, I just voted for this. And your opponent, Rob Whitman, is quite certainly one of the most racist, bigoted people in all of American politics. This is a man who most people don't realize has a long track record of advancing white supremacy. If you don't believe me, look at the lawsuit that he filed after the last redistricting, previous to the last redistricting in Virginia. He filed a lawsuit that went all the way to the Supreme Court, arguing that his new district was unfair to him. Why? Because it had too many black people in it. And the Supreme Court ruled 9-0 against him. When you get this Supreme Court to rule against you 9-0 because you're being too racist, you've kind of won racism, whatever that means. It's not a very good prize to win. But this is who this individual is. This is a guy who stood by Trump when he praised Nazis. This is a guy who said nothing when Trump demonized Jewish people and talked about how he wants, people wearing little hats counting his money. Every disgusting anti-Semitic slur that Trump has ever issued, this man has stood by him. He has no moral compass. Extraordinarily disgusting. Voted against, healthcare access, disability rights access, SNAP and TANF access. His wife is a public school teacher, or was. Voted against education. So, if you're going to vote against your own wife, what does that say about your moral compass otherwise? Mm-hmm. So you're up against really one of the worst people in Congress. What's your strategy? How are you fighting this guy? He's going to be extraordinarily well funded. He has no moral compass, so he will come at you with every single disgusting racist attack. How are you preparing to handle and respond and win?
So the veneer of Rob Whitman is wearing thin. He comes across as a mild-mannered marine biologist. Oh, I'm harmless type of personality. But he sees that the clock is ticking for him. There is an increase in misinformation that he's spreading throughout his social media accounts and his emails. So we know he's scared. And we know he sees that there are protests happening with regularity in our district, not just in affected areas, like impoverished areas, but even in the areas where there are, people who are well-to-do. And that is, of course, incredibly great for the Democrats because this means that people are angry. People are consistently showing up and showing out on how upset they are with Rob Whitman and with Republicans across the country. So, what we've been doing is meeting people where they are, talking with them, engaging with them, and letting them know over the past many months, hey, this is what the bill actually does. Here's what Rob Whitman is saying that the bill supposedly does, but here's how he's lying. Rob Whitman is a liar, and here's how. So we break it down, and we've been breaking things down for the better part of a decade to help people understand what the laws are saying and how we can make these laws help people. So while the big ugly bill was going through Congress, I was working on a national advocacy level and letting Congress members and their staff and people across the country know, hey, this is exactly how the bill is going to impact. And if you critically think the workflow over the next decade, this is how more Americans are going to go hungry, more Americans are going to lose health care. And it's not just those pockets that are receiving Medicaid and SNAP, but also the entire economy around it. Farmers are going to get impacted because they rely on SNAP income. Grocery stores are going to get impacted because, surprise, they rely on SNAP income. The truck drivers, the bankers who are processing the payments, the hospitals. And hospitals in rural areas are largely the largest employer in that rural area. So for the rural areas that are going to lose hospitals, you're losing the biggest employer, and they're not even going to be able to apply for SNAP because these onerous work requirements that are now coming through are going to leave them with nothing. So it is the most sinister thing I've ever seen, and we haven't even seen it happen yet.
And the domino effect that you're talking about is going to be devastating because it's just that ripple effect will go. And I think what's often ignored, I'm going to give you some rapid fire questions, are there's this assumption that people are on welfare because they're lazy, that we need work requirements because people don't want to work, that the trickle down scam, that to spur the economy or to grow the economy you give money to billionaires and somehow that grows the economy. All this is nonsense. So 15-second answers or less.
Okay.
How do you debunk the myth that SNAP, TANF are full of waste, fraud, and abuse, and this is just trying to get rid of the waste, fraud, and abuse?
These programs are deliberately made to be incredibly complicated, and so the inefficiency is made by Congress. We can actually make them more efficient, and I've been working with Congress to do just that. Once I'm in Congress, I know how these programs work, so I can make them more efficient.
But isn't that the argument already, that that's all that's being done? It's not that they're cutting aid, they're just cutting the inefficiencies?
No, what they did was increase work requirements, and that's going to kick millions of people off of the program. And there's no even jobs that have been created to help them get those jobs. But also on the other side, over 70% of people who can work are working in the SNAP program. So the work requirements are already built in. You're not living a life of luxury. You're barely getting your basic needs met when you're receiving government assistance. So you need to work to supplement.
I read on blogs that there is 40, 50, 60% fraud in SNAP and food stamps and TANF. How much truth is there to that?
No truth at all. The government has a really good inspector general that focuses on rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse. Nobody wants waste, fraud, and abuse, and so these agencies have their own inspectors that are rooting that out.
For those who may not know, what does an inspector general do?
So they make sure that the programs are running in compliance. They check out what the stores are doing, and there are some stores that do act fraudulently, and so they root them out and they penalize and punish them for that. The fraud, there is no fraud happening on a sinister level from the agencies. All the payment error rates that we see are because of the programs being needlessly and unnecessarily complicated. It shouldn't take you hours to apply for food assistance. It shouldn't have so many hoops to jump through. But this has been deliberately made so that the payment errors happen, so the states can be penalized and the people can be made to look bad. We live in the most wealthiest, prosperous, technologically advanced country in the world. We can create a better safety net. We just choose not to.
And I'll be honest, Salaam, if somebody is stealing food to live, let them. I don't care. Let them steal food. Let's focus on the people stealing billions from banks and collapsing our economy and selling us on false wars that cost us trillions of dollars and millions of lives. That's the theft I'm worried about. I don't care that a single mother living down the street stole an extra can of baby food, but she shouldn't have had to. It's a crime against humanity that any parent needs to feel pressure to do that in the first place.
And we're not even talking about theft here. Like what congressional Republicans have been up in arms about is, oh no, that single mom, she got $5 extra a month in
Who
SNAP
cares?
benefits, and
Who cares?
they need to be punished for that. So it's ridiculous. It's absolutely abhorrent. Meanwhile, they gave trillions to the richest people in human history.
I mean, what is the actual dollar amount the average person has taken out of their paycheck that goes to SNAP and TANF?
It's mere dollars.
It's like $2 a paycheck or something nominal like that. Meanwhile, for the arms trade, you're spending about $35-$40 a paycheck minimum, and then for corporate, subsidies,
Yeah.
you're spending like $400 a paycheck. It's insane. It's ridiculous.
Yep.
What about the myth that welfare does not grow the economy, that it actually brings down the economy?
Welfare has an incredible economic impact on the economy. For every dollar that goes into the SNAP program, you have up to $1.80 in revenue generation. And this is because when we give people with very little money, surprise, they spend it.
Mm-hmm.
And when money is spent, which is what it should be, which it should always be in constant circulation, it helps so many people. So, for example, SNAP helps grocery stores keep their lights on. It keeps people hired. It's a jobs creator. It pays for that truck driver that's transporting the food. It's paying the farmer who's growing the food. Similarly with Medicaid. Medicaid funds hospitals. Like, we're going to see a lot of hospitals close down because they lose their Medicaid funding. So Medicaid is a jobs creator as well, while also doing great things in helping people. So when you give money to people who do not have money, surprise, surprise, they don't hoard it like the wealthy. They spend it, and that is good for business.
Remind me to talk about Massachusetts and their tax on millionaires in a second. Okay, what about the myth that undocumented immigrants are why our healthcare is struggling because they keep taking Medicaid and Medicare, and they're the ones who are the chokehold on this?
Undocumented immigrants are not eligible for the federal welfare programs or Medicaid or SNAP or TANF. What they are doing is they're paying billions in taxes every year that's helping fund these programs. So if anything, it's an injustice that they're paying for programs they're not even eligible for. Now, there were some states that had some options for healthcare for undocumented folks, and the federal government was like, no, you know what? That's not allowed. And if you keep doing that, we're going to remove your funding for Medicaid. So now that puts states between a rock and a hard place. And so we saw states remove that ability for keeping their population healthy.
And then the final question was, if we just tax people more, if we tax millionaires and billionaires more, won't they just leave and that'll destroy our jobs and destroy the growth of our economy?
No, they're not leaving America. America is the greatest place in the world to have business, to grow your community, to raise your families. And that's why they're here. If they wanted to leave, they could have left. There are other countries where they have better tax laws or whatever. But they're not going to leave. They've already built something great here. They have all their community here. And that's what's going to keep them here. And we're going to see that happen where in New York right now, where they're looking at a little bit of an increase to help pay for public transit and all that stuff. We're going to see so much positive economic impact happen should that go through. And billionaires and millionaires are going to enjoy those privileges too, and also see an increased money come through for them too.
And this is where I bring up the example of Massachusetts.
Yeah.
In 2022, they increased taxes on millionaires not by 1% or 2% or 3%, but by 4%. And what's happened since then is that Massachusetts has seen population growth, job growth. They're bottom 10 in poverty, meaning they're one of they're like one of the top 10 states in ending poverty. And this is the stat that I love the most. Two stats actually. One, far from millionaires running away and leaving the state, Salaam, they've seen a 40% increase in the number of millionaires.
That's what's up.
40%. And it goes to the reason that you just cited, that when you give working class folks access to more money, they spend that money locally. And so what ended up happening is that small to mid-sized businesses, where folks were doing okay, now had more people coming in and spending money locally because they had more money to spend as well. And as a result, those folks got bumped up. You had more folks get out of poverty. It's a win all around. And the second thing, I got a bunch of emails I posted about this on social media. I got a bunch of emails from folks in Massachusetts who said, thanks for publicizing this. We worked our butts off to make this happen. But now the problem we face is that we have a larger surplus than we anticipated. And we have to figure out how we're going to spend this money. And guess what? This is the state that taxed millionaires. More millionaires were created. Nobody left the state. It's economically more prosperous. And now what's actually happening is that they have a surplus that they have to figure out how are we going to spend this in the best possible way. What a nice problem to have.
What a great problem. And that's one of the things. The government isn't taking this money to hoard it like what
Right,
private interests do.
right.
The government's job is to provide for the general welfare of society. And
That's right.
when you do that, surprise, surprise, everybody fares well with welfare.
If you like my mug, I got it last time I was in Virginia.
I
It
love
says
it.
Virginia.
That's great
Um,
branding.
you've lived in Virginia now for almost a decade.
Yep.
And I lived there for about a decade. I loved my time there. I came back home to be with family, my parents who've since passed. But we're here now, back where I grew up, and we love being back in Illinois. Let's talk about what you've enjoyed about Virginia, because you grew up in Pennsylvania and New York, and now you are in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Although you were in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania too,
That's
so
right.
you're used to the Commonwealth language. Have you slipped up and referred to Virginia as a state instead of a Commonwealth?
Early in my tenure, and I was reminded why
You were
not to say
tarred and feathered appropriately. The way Virginians get offended when you call it a state instead of a commonwealth, it's actually adorable. I don't mind it at all. It's actually endearing. All right, what are your favorite food spots in Richmond?
Oh my gosh. So I love going to Sefton Coffee downtown in Richmond for coffee. Ironclad, which is just down the road from my house. I love going there. But I have to get there early to get the chocolate chip muffins. Otherwise, they sell out quickly. Then Up All Night Bakery is my go-to for chocolate croissant. I've gained a lot of weight from that. And when the pandemic hit, I lost a lot of weight because I was not eating there as much.
Mm. I need to stop by there next time I'm over there. I haven't been to any of those spots. I've been out of Richmond now for almost a decade, and so I'm missing out on a lot of these spots. What are you finding? Because this is your first time you're running for office. What are you finding about running for office that was easier than you anticipated, and what are you finding that was more difficult than you anticipated?
Well, what I'm finding easier is talking about my record when I worked as an advocate in front of the Virginia General Assembly. People love to hear about all the work I've already done, and that's really making them enthusiastic of supporting my run because I've helped working class families by uniting both Democrats and Republicans to vote unanimously to expand the SNAP food assistance program. This expanded SNAP to over 25,000 working
Yeah,
families.
amazing.
They love that I helped expand free school meals for thousands of children across the Commonwealth. And that I even created a new type of online program or tool that helps screen people for SNAP and WIC. And to date, over 2.5 million households have used that to unlock over $100 million in benefits. So they love the vision that I'm a guy who understands technology, how we can use that to improve the government and make the government more efficient. And they want to see that type of vibe and energy in Congress. What I'm finding a lot more difficult is call time. Call time is the big thing that you do 4, 5, 6 hours a day, just calling people to donate to the campaign. What I'm also seeing though is like I love talking to people. I love hearing about what their priorities are, what their concerns are, and then when we have that great conversation, they definitely want to invest. And so what the ripple theory is that when somebody finds something good that they want to invest in, they tell their family, they tell their friends, and so when you hit one person, you get so much more coming from them too.
And I think I want to double down on this point because the call time aspect is the bane of every candidate's existence, with the exception of people who take corporate money or
Mm.
APAC money or
Mhm.
dark pack money. For them, it's just a couple of calls to their buddies at these corrupt entities who then say, yep, we got you covered. And that's it. And that's why you're seeing candidates for office who don't really worry about call time because they've made a deal with the devil.
Mhm.
And the devil being these corrupt dark pack corporations and whatnot, and entities that conceal where the money is coming from. It could be foreign. You have no idea. That's the problem. And so for them, this is a non-issue. You're taking a much more difficult path. Uh, just in like a minute, walk people through the day in the life of what call time requires, from even before you start making the calls to the follow-up.
So call time requires looking at the list of the donors that you're going to be reaching out to and seeing what they are interested in so that you can tailor your message in talking with them. Not just talking at them, but having a conversation and building a relationship. Because sometimes it's not at the end of the call they're going to donate money, but it's going to take a few, maybe up to 7 hits of talking with them to convince them that you're the right candidate. which is fine. If I was going to invest money into something, I would want to hear multiple times from them. And then calling them, and typically people are not answering the phone from an unknown number. So you leave a pleasant voicemail, and then you follow up with an email if you have their email. If you don't have their email, or if you did leave a voicemail, then you follow up about like a week or 10 days later just to give them some time in between touches. So it's a lot of repeated touches. It's 4 or 5 hours a day, and making sure you're communicating your message well, and not just going around begging for money. So it's a two-way solution of making sure that you are not beholden to any single corporate interest, which is why we're not taking any corporate money, we're not taking any APAC money. We want to be answerable to the people, and so we're only asking people for donations. The maximum, and what's really interesting is a lot of people don't even understand campaign finance. So I explained to them, like, the maximum you can do is $3,500 between now and June. If you can do $3,500 in one go, great. If you can chunk it up monthly, awesome. If all you can do is $20, fantastic. Because what people have been saying to me is like, Salaam, all I can do is 20, or all I can do is 50. But what I've been telling them is like, listen, you can't spell USA without us. And this is a campaign that is people-powered to show people the people's power. When you have 20 people giving $20, that's fantastic. When you have 100 people giving $20, that's amazing. So don't ever think that we're just doing this individually. We are fighting as a class against the elites. We want to show them that we outnumber them and that we mean business.
And for those watching and listening, I really can't emphasize this enough. We need to invest in the better democracy that we demand. It's correct, but easy to say we should end Citizens United and get corporate money out of politics. That's correct, but it's easy to say. What's hard to do is say, I am going to invest in these candidates myself and elevate the ones who are doing the hard work, who are, in Salaam's case, quitting his job because he, and I'll let you speak to this, was fed up with just the corruption and the lack of accountability and the lack of support for working people. It's up to us to support him in whatever capacity. And if you can donate. And I mean that. Go to his website right now, salaamforva.com, and donate. If you can't donate, sign up as a volunteer. Subscribe to his Substack. Share his content. All this stuff is critical. One of the things that I admired about the way Zoran Mamdani ran his campaign is he didn't listen to the naysayers who said, well, you're up against one of the most powerful political dynasties of the last 80 years in this country. You don't have the money, he's got the billionaires, you don't have the experience, he's got the age, he's got everything, the name recognition. He said, okay, you do what you got to do, I'm going to focus on working people. And what annoys me is everyone's like, oh, he just had a really good social media game. And what they don't understand is you don't just have a good social media game. You're a good person who has good values, and the social media game follows that. Yep. When you're a bad person with bad values, you end up with Andrew Cuomo with a video. You see the one where he's trying to jumpstart a car, but the black and the red are backwards. So it's like either this man is about to blow up his car to prove a point, or he's never actually had to jump his car before, which goes back to the point that you are an elitist who has no idea what working people have to go through. I remember leaving downtown Chicago when I worked in the Loop in February, and it's like 14 below zero, car is dead, my fingers are freezing off, and I'm trying to get this car to jumpstart. That's something that these elitists have never had to experience. But for those watching, someone like Salaam, I certainly have, someone like Salaam certainly has as well. And so if you cherish that, go to his campaign website, donate a couple of bucks, and help him go. Salaam, we're down to our last couple of minutes. And I want to kind of go on a little bit of lighter tone. If you've been watching, we're speaking with Salaam Bhatti, an attorney, poverty lawyer, someone who's spent his entire adult life committed towards working for marginalized communities, underrepresented communities, and now he's running for Congress in the 1st District of Virginia. But let's talk about something really serious and near and dear to my heart. How are you feeling about this next phase of Marvel movies with Robert Downey Jr. now playing a villain in Doctor Doom?
I don't get it. Like, there's so many actors out there. Why is Downey back? And this, like, I know comic book lore. Iron Man does not become, Doctor Doom does not become Iron Man. Iron Man does not become Doctor Doom. Like, what is going on here?
I mean, one of the theories that I've heard is that he was actually Doctor Doom all along, and that this is in some kind of an alternate universe switcheroo up front. He was made into Iron Man, but in actuality, he is Doctor Doom the whole time.
That makes sense considering both of them are in iron suits.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, that's a possibility there as well. And I feel like they kind of take the multiverse, like now anything can happen, right? Like, oh, there's no such thing as somebody dying. There's no such thing as somebody, somebody being injured or what have you. Everything can happen now that you have this infinite multiverse. So I am curious to see. I did notice that Pedro Pascal's role is being downshifted, and a lot of folks are saying it's because he spoke up for Palestine. Any thoughts on that?
Oh wow, I hadn't heard about his him being his nuked in the Marvel universe.
Yeah,
I think it's great that he spoke out and he's on the right side of history. The people are up in arms against Palestine, the genocide in Palestine.
yeah,
And he's a beloved actor as well. So it's against Disney's interests to put him aside. I mean, he's the most popular actor right
yeah.
now.
I'm kind of shocked, but I mean, it just speaks. I was talking to a colleague of mine who is pretty prominent in the industry, and he just made this comment. He goes, if I come out right now and say I support whatever Israel is doing, I know for a fact that my stock would rise in this industry. If I come out and say, hey, maybe we shouldn't kill babies, I know for a fact I would lose the contracts that I have right now. And he goes, it's tearing me apart because on one hand, I've been on the side of marginalized communities my entire life, and I've known this person for at least a couple of years, and so I can attest to that. And on the flip side, like, how do we win? How do we gain in this situation? And I think it's a kind of a microcosm of what you're facing, Salaam, over these next, 8, 9 months, 10 months until the primary, and then the general. I will close out with kind of this positive aspect of your race that I want to give people hope, because I never want to leave people hopeless. There is hope here. This is the district that when I ran, it went something like plus 15 or 16 Trump back in 2020. In 2024, it went like plus 5 Trump. And in 2026, it's projected to go plus 4 blue. And the Democratic Party has committed to putting resources and prioritizing this district in the general election. So we just need to get into the general. Now, when I ran, there were initially 5 or 6 people in the primary. It ended up being 2 of us, and I ended up winning the primary. Right now, I think there's 7 people in your primary?
Eight or nine.
8
now,
people in your primary. It's growing. I don't think they'll all make it to the actual primary because the amount of work it takes to get the petitions and the signatures and certified, it's a lot of work, and most people aren't up to the task. But talk a little bit about this primary. Talk a little bit about how this really is the most important part of this election, because you're going to have much more national support in the general. But here is where you really need folks to step up, step in, and be involved to help us get past this primary.
Yeah, so this campaign isn't about me. It's about us. It's about how the working class has been ignored and neglected, not just by Congress, but by the party as well. So this is a time to come and invest in this $5, $10, to come to our website to donate or to just sign up for a volunteer. There's so much work that needs to be done, whether you're in the district or outside, and we can use all hands on deck to get that message out there that we don't need to be an establishment Democrat or a corporate Democrat to win a primary and to ultimately win the general. And I am incredibly hopeful. I'm so excited about how this district is primed for flipping. It's we've had over 40,000 people move into the district just in the greater Richmond area. And what we're seeing is a lot of young families are moving into town because it's so affordable. So we have a lot of new voters we need to attract and get out to register them and to get the message out. So every single dollar is so critical. Every single volunteer knocking on doors is going to make an incredible amount of movement happening here.
And Salam, tell us again, 1, what is your website? 2, how can folks follow you on social media? And 3, just your closing message.
Yeah, website is salam4va.com, spelled SALAAM, the word for, va.com.